Hey guys, so today's video is going to be a review on the Sephora Perfection Mist Airbrush Foundation. I had one of these about a year ago and I used to wear the Dior Air Flash Foundation, but I just kind of wanted to go through and see how it applies, how it wears throughout the day, and just do a general review for this foundation. So I bought mine online at Sephora.com. You get 2.5 fluid ounces in here, and I have mine in the shade Fair, and that's the same shade I had it in about a year ago as well. Just for reference, the times that I've had a Dior foundation, I had the Air Flash in the shade 100, and then I think I went through the nude foundation as well, and I had that one in the shade 01. No, that was about 3 to 4 years ago. So my skin has probably changed a little bit, but I feel like this is probably pretty close as far as the lightness of the shade 100 from Dior. So if you are wanting to switch over and that's your shade, then the shade Fair probably will work pretty well for you. The foundation costs $28 and it has 2.5 fluid ounces in it. The Dior Air Flash foundation, which is very similar, it is 2.3 fluid ounces, so that's just a little bit less, and it costs $62. So that's over double, a lot over double what this one costs. I don't know if they're 100% dupes. I've never worn both of them at the same time or owned both of them at the same time. But if you're wanting something like this with the airbrush kind of aerosol sprayer, I would definitely try this one first instead of getting the $62 one. I feel like this one gives you really good results. And I remember the Dior one being really good, but this one's good as well. So I just don't see that it's worth getting the Dior Air Flash. Alright, so I'm going to just get into applying it. Before putting on the foundation, I'm going to go in with Too Faced HangoveRx. This is one of my favorite primers. Today I'm going to be demonstrating the Sephora Perfection Mist Airbrush Foundation. This is very similar to the Dior Air Flash Foundation if you're familiar with it. But I'm going to just shake it up really well. This one is in the shade Fair if anyone is curious. And then I'm going in with my IT Cosmetics. This is a Velvet Luxe 301 buffing foundation brush, and it's just kind of like a dense flat kabuki brush. So I'm going to shake it up, spray the foundation onto the brush, and then just begin building it up on my face. I found with this foundation, it's best to just kind of go in layers. When you spray a lot of product on the brush and then just try to do your whole face at once, it doesn't give as full of a coverage. If you go in small, like thin layers, and then go back with a second layer, then it's going to give you a little bit more coverage. There's something about the way the foundation works that it just doesn't, it doesn't cover, especially like around my cheeks. I'll notice it, like it kind of picks it back up when you try to just do all at once, but when you do padding layers, it seems to build up much better. As far as how long this lasts, I'm really not 100% sure. I don't know how long the first bottle I had of this lasted, mostly because I use lots of foundations. Back when I used the Dior Air Flash, that was the only foundation for the most part that I used. And I believe it would last me about 2 months, maybe 3 months if I was really stretching it. Now, if you really build it up to full coverage every day, it's not going to last you as long as if you just kind of wear one layer of it. And I believe the amount is pretty similar in this. And since the coverage is similar, I would think you could get about 2 to 3 months of use from these as well. So I'm just working it in until I can feel that it's dried a little bit. When you first apply it to your skin, you can feel like the cooling sensation, and you can kind of tell, like I said, when you work it in, once it's dried a little bit. So this is what the foundation looks like. No concealer, no powder, anything. This is just the Sephora foundation, and this was using a brush. I think when I use my beauty blender, I can get a little bit better coverage. For concealer today, I'm going to go in with the NYX Dark Circle Under Eye Concealer. And this one I'm going to just mostly put on the inner corner, like all the way in the inner corners on the sides of my nose. That's where I get the darkest. And I just kind of pat it in until it's nice and blended. On top of that, I'm going to go in with the Urban Decay Naked Skin. Mine is in the shade Fair Neutral. And I don't use too much of this. I just kind of put it very little. It looks like a lot more than it is. But I just kind of pat it around the eye area. And your nose just to kind of highlight since it is so much of a lighter color. And then I'm going to go in with this sponge. This is the ULTA blending sponge that I talked about in my recent haul video. So if you want kind of a quick review of that, I'll link that video in the cards and down below. Now I'm going to set that concealer. I'm going to use my Laura Mercier translucent powder and the Sephora Pro Contour brush. This is my favorite brush. It's really nice for getting underneath the eye area. Alright, I'm going to just let that sit on my under eyes while I go in for the rest of my face. This is the MAC Mineralize Skinfinish in Light Plus. I'm going to just kind of dust this all over just to make sure nothing moves. I generally put powder on almost all of my foundations just because I don't like the feeling of like touching my skin later and having a bit of that stickiness to it. I just like the feel of a powder on top of a foundation rather than just the foundation by itself. Alright, so this is what my skin looks like wearing the Sephora Airbrush foundation. I'm going to zoom you in just so you can kind of see the texture of my skin. Alright, so you can see up close that you can still see a lot of freckles and pigmentation changes throughout my skin. This is not a full coverage foundation in my opinion. I guess if you just kept layering it, you could build it up, but how much I layered it today is about as much as I would want to layer it. I wouldn't want to waste the product. So yeah, this like acne scar, you can still see, it's a little bit drier around my nose area, and it is a little bit more drying on my skin than most foundations. But I will check in throughout the day just to kind of see how it's holding up and to see if the coverage that I have is holding. Alright, I have now been wearing the Airbrush foundation for about 9 hours, maybe a little bit more. So I'm going to zoom in just so you can see kind of how it's wearing. But just from this perspective, it seemed to have worn pretty well. It has given kind of like a no foundation look to the skin. Around here you can kind of see it, but as far as like the forehead and the cheeks, just the way it sits on the skin I've really enjoyed. So you can see that the pigmentation kind of showing through is pretty much about the same like it was earlier. It's probably worn off a little bit, especially around my mouth area, just because that's one of the places that makeup rubs off the most because you're constantly eating and drinking throughout the day. And you can also kind of see kind of on the bottoms of my face, just from me kind of like resting my hand on my head on my hand, where it's coming off. But for the most part, I think this is worn very well throughout the day. My nose, you can see, is just about the same amount of dryness as it was earlier when I first filmed myself putting it on. It hasn't really clung to any dry patches that I can tell, and I think it's just worn very nice. Alright, well that is all of my final thoughts on this Sephora Airbrush foundation. I hope you enjoyed this video and that it was some helpful information for you. If you liked the video, then don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more videos from me, then just subscribe. Thanks!